So as John mentioned, I love that, that we are moving into a month of wholeness. We're going to talk about what wholeness is. And you know, it's one of those spiritual principles. It's a little bit more nebulous. It's a little bit more difficult to explain. It's one of those that, you know, that sometimes we struggle with a little bit. So I always go back to the definitions, to the dictionary, because that's what I was trained with when I was little. I had my own big one. So wholeness, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is the condition of being sound in body. The quality or state of being without restriction, exception, or qualification. I like that. The state of being without restriction, so there's no limitations, exception, or qualification. So we just are. We just are. And so what I thought we would do is let's start by thinking about, I'm going to invite you to think about a new baby. This week I got to meet a girlfriend. There you go. Hi, perfect. I would, but no. So this week I got to hold my one of my girlfriend's new babies, who's 5 weeks, Videla. She's so sweet. She nestled into me and nuzzled me a little and cuddled there with me. Yeah, you know that's a big fat lie. She was screaming the whole time. But picture me with the baby easing into my arms, you know, training for grandmotherhood at some point. Babies don't cry when they're in Reverend Catherine's arms. That's how it works. No, it's not how it works, but that's my intention. I'll add that to my personal covenant. But just think about that. Think about the baby. Take a look at this gorgeous little one. Think about your child when you held them in their hands, in your arms when they were first born. That's wholeness. You see the perfection in the child. They have everything that they need. There's nothing wrong there. There's infinite potential and possibility, right? And you can see their life, the possibilities of their life swarming around them. You know, that there's nothing, they're complete in and of itself. There's nothing to hinder their path. Now what happens is we grow and we learn how to think. And we can start to think ourselves out of believing in our wholeness. We get to think ourselves into a sense of limitation. And wherever those thoughts come from, I'm not doing the blame game today. I'm not going to talk about our mothers or our parents or their parents or the culture or whatever. But what happens is that we grow out of an understanding of our completeness. We grow into a place of thinking that we have to get something from the outside to satisfy the inside. We grow into an experience of that. And so we convince ourselves that we're not whole. We convince ourselves that there's something lacking. And that sets us on the trajectory of our life to find that missing piece, to find that place within us or an understanding of where we belong. And that's the Spirit's journey is the human, I would say. The Spirit's journey is the human life, is a journey back to wholeness, to understanding that we are complete just as we are. So today I'm talking about cracks and all. And so the cracks that I'm talking about today are all of those false ideas, those false beliefs, the belief system and the thought processes that we go to think ourselves out of our wholeness. To convince ourselves that there's something wrong with us. To convince ourselves that there's pieces of us that won't be accepted. That there's some personal trait or some idea, or I don't care if it's a physical thing or an emotional thing or a reaction, whatever it is, that we convince ourselves that we're not enough. It's the enough syndrome. I'm not enough this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not whatever enough it is. That we convince ourselves that we're not whole because of this. That's the crack that I'm talking about. And in order for us to start to move back into a place of wholeness, is where we're going to get to in a few minutes here, is a remembering back to the truth that's already within us. The wholeness is within us because each of us has that divine spark of God alive at the center of our being. Each of us has that presence, that power that we call God, that is right where we are. And wherever any of God is, all of God is. So think about that for a second. Really, take a breath on it with me, because I need a breath on it. Wherever any of God is, all of God is. And And so the creator of the universe and the power that brought forth all that has existed over time is right where you are. It's available to you. The mind that created this intricate, beautiful, divinely ordered and perfect universe created you and is there to support you and to love you. It's right where you are. We have everything that we need within us. We have to remember that. We have to love ourselves back to a place of wholeness. It's not getting something from the outside to be whole. It's revealing it from the inside out. So we forget that core of our being. And so the idea is to guide ourselves back into that experience of wholeness. It said that Ernest Holmes summarized the science of consciousness in 3 short sentences. Ernest Holmes was the founder of religious science. He's the author of the Science of Mind textbook from which we study. And he says this: 3 things. 1, life is one perfect wholeness. 2, the universe is a unit. It's not separate pieces, it's a unit. And God is one. So, from that, we realize that there's nothing outside of God. There's not God and something. There's just the presence of God. In other words, there's never anything separate from God. And any experience of separation is from a distorted perception. It's our filter. It's our perspective. It's what we're looking from, is what we're seeing. And I love that. That when we realize that, we are able to start to take responsibility for the creation of our life, because we realize that we're not seeing things as they are, we're seeing them as we are. That's another deep breath moment. This is a deep one. This is a big one for me to start right away with. So I'm giving you the goods right away today. Okay? So the idea is that when we start to have any judgment or any pain or any difficulty or any blame on something outside of us, there's something in there for us to own. There's some piece of our own perspective, something that's happened in the past has put a filter in our perception, and it all has to go through that. So we get an experience of being not cared for to the level that we think we need to be when we're 9 months old. Pre-cognitive realization. My mom was dealing with the grease fire that was going on in the kitchen, and she couldn't pick me up like I wanted her to. And so then I get this idea that I'm not worthy of being loved and cared for, and that filter gets installed. And so the rest of my life, without addressing that, I'm going to operate everything that happens to me through the filter of I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of being cared for. And so what's going to happen is this universe is a unit, so it's going to call forth to me all the experiences that are going to support that belief, because the universe wants us to support us so much that it's going to support our false beliefs. It's going to support our distorted perceptions. It's going to support us in staying in that place until we step beyond it and realize, wait a minute, no, that's not true. I'm the emanation of God. I am ultimately lovable. I am ultimately the divine gift to the world. Why would I not be worthy of love? Following me? All right, put me to sleep already. No? Okay, good. Okay. All right, good. All right. So, when I first came into this philosophy, there's an affirmation that gets thrown around a lot, that we are whole, perfect, and complete. Right? Have you heard it? I don't say it very often, and the reason why I don't say it is because I hate it. It drives me nuts. Oh my goodness. It's one of those things that I'm like, oh, perfect and complete. Okay, so what I thought as a newbie, I was like, oh heck, you guys are crazy. I sat in the back of the sanctuary. I was in the back corner of the sanctuary when I first started coming to Science of Mind Church, and I would say, yeah, that's a load of baloney. Whole, perfect, and complete. So here I am. My life is a mess. How could you say I'm whole? I could barely pay my bills. I didn't have my own car. I didn't, and I was like trying to get people to take me places and try and find a job and trying to figure out, after I transplanted from the East Coast, I showed up here. I had no idea why I was here. It felt like, I got spun around and thrown into Southern California, and I'm in like with the aliens. Now I am an alien, 20 years later. But if someone told me I was whole at at that point, never mind perfect. Oh my goodness, they told me I was perfect. Oh yeah, you just don't know me. I may show up nice. But you have no idea what's going on in this head, and you have no idea where I've been. That's not perfect. You would not think that's perfect. Well, whose definition of perfect, right? And complete. Oh my goodness, complete. That was another hilarious one. Yeah. So for me, when I first heard that, I just said they're crazy, and that I was about to turn away from this philosophy. But that day, that in the center, they had this meditation afterwards, and we did a labyrinth walk. And I stayed for the meditation, and I walked the labyrinth, and I had a mystical experience walking the labyrinth, and woke up. It felt like I got hit by lightning. I woke up, and it wasn't in the center, and it wasn't before I started. It wasn't after the end. It was like somewhere in the middle, right? Like, which is totally like me. I'm walking down the street, and all of a sudden, boom, you have a spiritual experience. Okay, and so somewhere in the middle, I got stuck. I couldn't take another step because I realized that the part that was inside that had been pushing me to be a seeker was the one that said, you are whole, you are perfect, and you are complete just as you are. And I got it. I got the picture of it. I still never use the phrase very often because it took me a while to grow into an understanding of that. Ernest Holmes from The Science of Mind says this. He said that there is that within every individual which partakes of the nature of the universal wholeness, and insofar as it operates is God. So God is at the center of our being. He goes on to say that the potential of all things exists in the universal wholeness. And Rumi says everything in the universe is within you. All of the mystics of the ages have brought forth the same message. It doesn't matter if they were Christian mystics or Jewish mystics or Islamic mystics. It doesn't matter. What they've all come out with is that there's a unity of being and we're part of it. There is one. And that we are in and of the presence, the love, the power, and you can call it God, you can call it spirit, you can call it love, you can call it whatever you want, but it's God. And it's that divine truth of who and what we are. And it reveals itself in our life. Now the idea of being, so I want to just talk about perfection and completeness for a second. Divine perfection, what I think about when I think about divine perfection is that there's a place in the universe for everything, and everything in the universe is in its perfect place. Not my house, the universe, right? I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to replicate that in my house, and it hasn't been working yet, but I'm holding them. I'll set an intention for that to happen this month. But so the idea is this, is that we all belong to the universe. That there is a place for you here, and the universe in this life is not complete without you. Without you fully expressing yourself and showing up and giving the gift to this life that you've been called to give. You are a perfect piece of the cog of this machine that is life, and it's necessary and it's needed. And so often we walk around our lives and refuse to take up residence and to take up real estate in our own life. We think that we don't belong, or we think that we're not enough, or we think that we're not contributing, or whatever the stories are that we tell in ourselves, which is a load of baloney. And it's our mind keeping us safe, and it's our mind keeping us small. But that's not the perfection of who we are. The perfection of who we are is to be who we are, to take up space, and to own our own real estate, to own our own life, and to give it as a gift unto the world. Complete, there's nothing missing. There's nothing missing from within you. You have everything you need to be the fullest expression of who you've come here to be. You have a direct line. You've got that red phone. Remember that old red phone that was on the president's desk? I don't know what's on the president's desk anymore. But there used to be a phone, that bat phone, right? that you have a direct line to God from within you. And the more that we connect with it, the more that we commune with it, and the more that we pick up the damn phone, the more that we do that and connect with God, the more we are guided and supported. The more we realize that there is a communication and a wisdom that wants to guide us, and that we have to listen to it. That we keep thinking, okay, show me the way, show me the way, show me the way. Okay, well, it is showing you the way, but we're just looking the wrong way. We're not listening. And so in order for us to be complete, to be perfect, and to be whole is to be one with this life that we're living. Every part of us, everything that we love about ourselves and those things that we push away or we pretend aren't true. And again, like I said, it could be a physical trait, it could be an emotional trait, it could be a situation that we've created in our life. Everything is part of this truth that we are. Everything, cracks and all, are the divine wholeness. And as we connect to it and allow it to come forward, we are guided and supported in creating that experience of life that Pam was reading about from our book of the month. That ease, that okayness, that joy that comes from everything flowing. We're here to allow life to flow. So one of the things that I loved about this weekend was that I got to spend the time with one of my mentors, Dr. Katherine, who was our past spiritual leader for our organization. So she's been out, she's seen everything. She was one of the ministers that trained me back in the day when I became a minister. She's one of my mentors. And she is this lovely, powerful, quiet yet powerful spiritual teacher. And so she was with us, and she and I were, I was driving her around a little bit, and I was reminding her of a talk that she gave that was up for me this week, way back at Economou about 10 years ago. We were in a period of transition within the organization, and we were getting ready to do what they called integration, which is a long political story. Who cares about that? Two sides of an organization came back together. Now we're all one, because there's only oneness. There you go. So, but the process of that was like moving two barges together, right? Like trying to get two organizations that operated differently for 60 years each to come together was like a huge deal. And one of the things that Katherine said in that talk at Economou was she said that she loves the fact that Ernest Holmes said that we're open at the top. And I love that we as an organization are open at the top. And what that means is we recognize that there's an evolution of thought. That he knew when he wrote this. He wrote The Science of Mind back in the 20s and the 30s, and then he lived up to 1960, and this organization was birthed in that century there. But what he realized that he was not going to be here forever, but that we were going to continue to grow and evolve in thought. So the thing I love about New Thought people is that we're open to try anything, right? We'll breathe, we'll lay down and breathe, and we'll meditate in all sorts of different ways. We'll try all sorts of different, dump tanks and all sorts of things, and all different kinds of healing modalities and different ways of thinking and looking and expanding our perceptions and consciousness, right? That we're open at the top. But what she said in that talk was the fact that we're not open at the bottom. Okay, so you want to think about the V being open at the top, but it comes down to a very solid foundation. We have a very strong foundation of a belief system that we live by, that the Science of Mind lays out, and that's never going to change. But if there are cracks in that foundation, we have to fix those cracks before we can go anywhere, before we can create a life, before we can really allow these spiritual principles to guide and support us. And so this philosophy teaches us that there's one power and one presence that we're part of, and that we can use it, we can lean into it, we can be part of this divine flow of life through our thought processes, through our belief systems. And we create situations in our lives from how we think about ourselves and about life. We call forth those people and those occurrences and those situations that are going to support our beliefs. So let me tell you, if you have a crack in your foundation and you think you're not worthy, you are going to call forth to you situations that are going to support you in that belief that you're not worthy, until you can stand in the power and presence of knowing that you are the divine child of God, given all that you need and more to have a full and magnificent life. If you believe that you're not capable of being loved, if you think that you are, fundamentally flawed, and that there's no one that's going to be able to see you for who you are, no one's going to see you. No one will be able to love you because you can't love yourself. And so life is a mirror for us for our beliefs. Life is a mirror for us showing us what we're projecting into it. And so it's our responsibility, Science of Mind teaches us, it's our responsibility to take a look at our life and see what our beliefs are. Because one of the things that happens all the time is that we think we believe something, but we're experiencing something opposite to that. And so my whole goal right now is for us to be clear about what our values and what our belief system is, and then put our actions in alignment with them and align them. Because that's when you become a channel for divine life. That's when you are fully immersed in embracing the truth of your being. That's when you're bringing forward the gifts that you've come here to give in this life. But we can't do that if there's cracks in the foundation. And so what do? We go back to God. Oh, the other thing that she said this weekend, Kathy said, and I just kept jotting down her quotes because I'm like, okay, this is for my talk. This is for my talk. Instead of having Katherine do the talk, I'll just do the talk through Katherine. She said that everything that happens in our life is grist for our spiritual awakening. Everything that happens, all those experiences, all those little nudgy things on the highway, and all those difficult things in our relationships, and all of those challenging situations that pop up along the road are grist for the mill of our spiritual awakening. We can use everything that happens to remind us that we're spiritual beings. We can use everything that happens to remind us that we are not alone, that there is a wisdom that is guiding us, and there's a wisdom that's supporting us, and that we can lean on it. Instead of trying to say, okay, that's happening out there, we have to realize that that's happening out there because there's something within me that needs to be healed. There's a crack that needs to be filled and addressed. So, what happens is this. Life is going along, and we've got some of these false beliefs that have cracked our foundation, that we're carrying, these things about ourselves. And so we hit a situation in our life, and then instead of having it inspire us to a greater understanding of the nature of our being, we react, right? And there's a couple of things that we normally do. All the different reactions boil down to this. We either fight, we flee, or we freeze. Right? We fight, we flee, or we freeze. And so when any of those situations happen, so I want you to think about what your tendency is. Give me a little nod. You know what yours is. You don't have to tell me, but you know what yours is. But you do. I know what I do. You know what you do? Yes? Okay. All right. But that's a reaction to a false belief. That's a reaction to an idea that we hold about ourselves that isn't true. And so, but as long as we are reacting that way, what are we doing? We're recreating the situation, and we're calling it forth again. So the most important thing for us to do is to stop that action, is to stop the reaction, and you'll know what it is. You'll know when you're in the middle of it the first time. You'll wake up in the middle of it going, hey, look, I'm fighting. Hey, look. Oh, wow. Reverend Katherine was right. Oh, I'm freezing. I'm playing possum. Maybe they won't see me. You know? or in the middle of, why am I running so fast out the door here, you know? And so my invitation for us is to begin this process by going back to spiritual practice, by being awake to what our reactions are. So in that moment when we're starting to feel ourselves, oh, I gotta get out of here, I really want to get out of here, let me get out of here, I'm going to get out of here, you know, to stop and to be present and ask the divine wisdom, guide me. What is it to be done here? What am I to lean into? And what am I to not? What needs to be done here? What can I do to allow it to resolve itself differently? Because let me tell you, your reactions are not working so far. I don't know about you, but mine are not working so far. We have to find a way to be present with one another in this life. We grow up all over each other, right? That's kind of what it feels like. Even as adults, we're growing up all over each other. And so by stopping our reactive nature and by moving back into a place of asking, we ask our higher wisdom self, we ask the presence of God that's within us, we ask in our meditations to show us, show me the way, guide me. I firmly believe that we can have a deep, resonant relationship with the divine. And I believe it speaks back to us, we just have to hear it. We have to be present enough to hear its wisdom for us. And so the other thing that happened this week that reminded me of this is that we moved back into our place of spiritual practice. I went and got my hair cut this week, and I was visiting. I love to go to my little shop in downtown Fallbrook. It's so quaint and cute, and there's a little shop right there that's right next to our coffee shop, so I usually go in and get coffee first, and then bring it to my hairdresser. And as I'm walking down the street with coffee from my hairdresser, she's out in front of her shop sweeping. And it's on Main Street, and it's right there in the front, and she's just sweeping out in front. And I got it. I watched her sweeping that, and I got it. I got the power of our spiritual practice. Because you know what? She sweeps that 6 days a week, right? And she does it really, she's like me, because I don't clean a lot, but when I do, I'm like down on doing the sideboards, like scrubbing them. Yeah. So she was very meticulous about doing it, and I was like, we're just going to have to do it again tomorrow, right? And so there's a part of me that says, well, why bother? Why bother? It's just a little dust, right? Well, think about a whole week of dust on the front. Think about 2 weeks of dust on the front of her shop and what that would look like and what that would feel like. And would it be a comfortable, lovely experience walking in to Mary Jane North if to get my hair done if it was a mess out front? That's what I think about our spiritual practice. Why do I have to listen to spiritual music all the time? Why do I have to sit down and meditate every day? Why do I have to do my prayers? I know God, right? I know God's there. I know there's only one. Why do I have to do it? I know. I've read the books. I know. I can do some good quotes. I know, Well, I got it. The importance of our spiritual practice of every day. So when we sit down for meditation, we're hosing off the dust of the world. We're hosing off the belief and limitation that most people carry. When we say our prayer treatments, we're shining the glorious chrome and metal things of our life to glow. We're remembering that we are a divine emanation and we glow. When we say our affirmations, and we know the truth of who we are, and sprinkled in through the day, we're cleansing ourselves of everything from the outside. And so when we live in a world that wants to keep us small, when we live in a world that it's easier for the world if we're small, it's easier for the world if we keep to ourselves, it's easier if we think we're limited. But it's not the truth of who we are. And so every day we are called to go back to our spiritual practice. Every day we are called to go back and remember that wholeness is alive within us. Even if we don't feel it, we have to remember that it's the truth. We have to remember that that's who we are. And it's going back to connecting with the truth of our being. Also, this book for the month, What's in the Way is the Way, is really lovely. I'm so grateful that Reverend Angela suggested it a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to. I'm jumping all around in it already, and it's only the 5th. But there's a great reading at the end that I wanted to share with you. It says, life is you. So the more you allow life to move through you rather than reacting to it or trying to control it, the more you glimpse the phase in which you see that life is you. You are no longer a separate being. Instead, you merge completely into the creative flow of life, understanding that everything, every rock, every person, cloud, molecule, and ladybug is you. You are life. In the 2013 New World Library video, What is the Divine Purpose of the Universe? Eckhart Tolle said, "You are not in the universe, you are the universe, expressing itself through countless life forms. And with every experience, the universe is experiencing itself as your life. It wants to realize its own essence through you." So that's the vision. That's where we're headed. That's what we want to get to. We want to get to a place where we remember that the universe lives within us and that we are one with the universe. And you, again, put any word in there that works for you. You are a part of Spirit, and Spirit is a part of you. You are part of God, and God is a part of you. There is this essence and presence that flows, this creative principle of life that moves forward. We're never stuck. But it has to start from within us. It has to start by connecting to it, by solidifying that foundation, letting go of those false beliefs, filling in those cracks, embracing the truth of who we are, and integrating all the parts of us. So that when we express who we are, we come from that place of power and that place from love, not from the place of reaction and the place of hurt. Because our true nature is wholeness. It's right there where we are. And so this month what we're going to do is we're going to step forward every day, pulling from that wholeness, leaning on that wholeness, realizing that there's nothing that we need from the outside world. We have everything we need right where we are. And so the daily meditation that we do this month, I invite you to connect and commune with that lover of your soul, the one that needed you so badly to express a part of it. It created you from across the ages. God loves you so much. God is right where you are, and it's giving you everything you need to live a fulfilling, magical, wonderful life. And I think this is the month that we step into doing that. And so it is.